When desperate single mother Olivia accidentally texts the wrong number, it lands in the inbox of a powerful CEO with a mysterious past. Within Boston's gleaming corporate towers, what begins as a job opportunity quickly spirals into a dangerous game of deception and betrayal. One mistyped digit might cost Olivia everything, or become the key to a future she never imagined possible. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. Chapter 1. Wrong digit. Olivia Morris stared at her phone, her hands trembling as she typed the desperate message. Ryan, I hate to ask again, but I need $50 for Max's medication. I get paid Friday. I swear I'll pay you back. She hit send before she could change her mind, then slumped against her threadbare couch, exhaustion washing over her. The baby monitor crackled with her 8-month-old son's soft breathing. Olivia had exactly $3.27 in her checking account, no medication, and rent was already 2 weeks late. 5 miles away in the penthouse office of Summit Innovations, Jackson Thorne's phone buzzed. The 40-year-old CEO glanced at the notification, expecting another update from his executive team about their upcoming IPO. Instead, he found himself staring at a message clearly not meant for him. Jackson frowned, running a hand through his dark hair. Few people had this personal number. This was obviously a wrong number, yet something about the raw desperation in those few lines made him pause before dismissing it. Olivia's phone pinged with a response that made her heart stop. I think you have the wrong number. I'm not Ryan. Horror washed over her as she checked the number. She had mistyped the last digit of her brother's new phone number. I'm so sorry, she typed back quickly. Please ignore that. Wrong number. She tossed her phone aside, mortification burning through her exhaustion. Another failure in a long string of them. Jackson couldn't explain why he didn't simply acknowledge her apology and move on. Perhaps it was the mention of medication for someone named Max. Or maybe it was just a welcome distraction from the cutthroat negotiations that had consumed his life for months. Is Max going to be okay? He typed, surprising himself. When Olivia saw the response, she blinked in confusion. Why would a stranger care? Her first instinct was caution. She'd heard plenty of stories about predators online, but exhaustion and desperation weakened her usual defenses. We'll manage, she replied curtly. Sorry to bother you. I could help. No strings attached, came the immediate response. Olivia snorted. In her experience, there were always strings. Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers, she wrote back. Smart policy, Jackson replied. He hesitated, then added, I'm Jack. Now I'm not a stranger. What medication does Max need? Olivia stared at the message, torn between suspicion and a flicker of hope. Why would you help someone you don't know? In his office, Jackson looked out over the Boston skyline. Why indeed? His assistant would say he was procrastinating on reviewing the IPO documents. His ex-wife would say he was having another impulsive moment. Both would be partially right. Let's just say I've been fortunate and I remember when I wasn't, he replied. It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Olivia's exhaustion clouded her judgment. She hadn't slept more than 3 consecutive hours in days. The medicine was for Max's ear infection, a prescription antibiotic that cost $47 with her limited insurance coverage. I don't feel right about this, she typed. What's your Venmo? Jackson asked. Olivia hesitated, then sent her username. What did she have to lose? She could always block this person if things got weird. Seconds later, her phone buzzed with a notification. Olivia gasped. This Jack hadn't sent $50. He'd sent $500. This is too much, she typed frantically. I can't accept this. Consider it in advance for the next few months, Jackson replied. One less thing to worry about. Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes, blurring her vision. She hadn't cried when she'd been laid off from the accounting firm 3 months ago. She hadn't cried when Ryan, her only remaining family, had moved to Seattle for work, leaving her without her safety net. She hadn't even cried when her landlord had slipped the eviction warning under her door yesterday. But this unexpected kindness from a complete stranger broke something loose inside her. Thank you, she typed simply, unable to find words adequate for her gratitude. You're welcome, Olivia, Jackson replied. Take care of Max. It wasn't until hours later, as Olivia returned from the pharmacy with Max's medication, that she realized something that made her blood run cold. She had never mentioned her name to this stranger. The next morning, Olivia woke to another message from the mysterious Jack. Hope you and Max had a better night. I have a proposition for you. Olivia's guard immediately went up. Here it comes, she thought bitterly. The strings. What kind of proposition? She asked warily. Professional, not personal, came the swift reply. I run a company called Summit Innovations. We need someone with accounting skills for a short-term project. Your brother Ryan mentioned you were looking for work. Olivia nearly dropped her phone. How do you know my brother? How do you know I'm an accountant? Her heart raced as she checked her social media profiles, all set to private. Who was this person? I apologize for the intrusion, Jackson wrote. After our conversation, I was curious. Your number is very similar to Ryan Morris, who works in my HR department. When I mentioned the wrong number text to him this morning, he realized who you must be. He speaks very highly of your accounting skills. Olivia sank onto her couch, relief and wariness battling for dominance. It was a reasonable explanation, but still unsettling. So this was all just a coincidence? Completely, Jackson confirmed. But perhaps a fortunate one for both of us. We genuinely need help with a project reconciling some accounts before our IPO. It's a 3-month contract with the possibility of permanent placement. Would you be interested in interviewing? Olivia's mind raced. It seemed too perfect, too convenient. Yet her brother did indeed work in HR at some tech company. She'd never paid much attention to the details. She'd been sending out resumes for weeks with no response. Could she really afford to turn down this opportunity out of suspicion? I'd be interested in hearing more, she finally replied cautiously. But I'd need flexibility. I have Max and Childcare we offer on-site childcare for employees, Jackson wrote back immediately, and flexible working hours. Come in tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll tell reception to expect you. As Olivia prepared Max's morning bottle, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about this situation wasn't adding up. The coincidence seemed too perfect, the timing too convenient. But with her savings depleted and eviction looming, did she really have the luxury of looking this gift horse in the mouth? What she didn't know was that across town, Jackson Thorne was having second thoughts about his impulsive decision, wondering if he'd overstepped boundaries in a way that would come back to haunt them both. The Summit Innovations headquarters loomed above Olivia like a gleaming tower of glass and steel. She adjusted Max's carrier on her arm, straightened her only professional blazer, thrifted but still presentable, and pushed through the revolving doors. The security guard at the front desk smiled as she approached. Olivia Morris? He asked before she could speak. At her surprised nod, he continued, Mr. Thorne's office is on the top floor. Diana will meet you at the elevator. The smooth efficiency with which she was escorted through the building only heightened Olivia's sense of unreality. This wasn't how job interviews usually went, especially not for temporary accounting positions. An elegant woman in her 50s met her as promised and led her not to a conference room or HR office, but directly to a corner suite with views that momentarily took Olivia's breath away. He'll be with you shortly, Diana said, gesturing to a sitting area. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be nice, thank you, Olivia replied, settling Max's carrier on the soft leather couch beside her. The baby was mercifully asleep, exhausted from the morning's preparations. Olivia used the moment alone to take in her surroundings. The office was surprisingly warm for a CEO's lair. Bookshelves lined one wall and family photos dotted the desk. A guitar stood in one corner, incongruous against the backdrop of corporate success. He looks peaceful, came a deep voice from the doorway. Olivia turned to find a tall man watching her with keen interest. His expensive suit couldn't hide the athletic build beneath, and laugh lines around his eyes softened what might otherwise have been an intimidating presence. This, she realized with a jolt, was Jackson Thorne, the stranger who had sent her $500 for baby medication. Mr. Thorne, she said, standing quickly. Thank you for seeing me. Jack, please, he corrected, moving forward to shake her hand. His grip was firm but brief, and thank you for coming in on such short notice. There was an awkward pause as they both seemed to acknowledge the strange circumstances that had brought them together. I should explain yesterday's texts, he said finally, taking a seat across from her. I don't make a habit of sending money to wrong numbers. And I don't make a habit of accepting it, Olivia countered, finding her voice. I'm still not entirely comfortable with how this all happened. Jack nodded, respecting her directness. Fair enough. What would he say next? And why did he really bring her here? As Olivia waited for his explanation, she couldn't help wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake coming to Summit Innovations today. Chapter 2: Hidden Agendas. The truth is, Jack began, his voice softening, your message came at a particular moment. He glanced at a framed photo on his desk that Olivia couldn't quite see. Yesterday was the anniversary of my son's death. Olivia's breath caught. I'm so sorry. Tyler would have been 9, he continued, his eyes drifting to Max. Leukemia. He fought for 2 years. Olivia instinctively reached for Max's carrier, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. When I got your text about needing medication, Jack said, it felt like, I don't know, a chance to help someone the way I couldn't help him. The explanation disarmed Olivia. The suspicion she'd been nursing, that this was some elaborate setup, or worse, that he expected something inappropriate in return for his help, began to dissolve. And the job? She asked cautiously. Completely legitimate, he assured her. The connection with your brother was coincidental, but when I mentioned the wrong number story to the HR team this morning, Ryan recognized the situation immediately. He's been worried about you. Olivia felt a flush of embarrassment. Ryan doesn't know how bad things got. I didn't want him to worry when he's just getting established himself. Family pride, Jack noted with understanding. I know something about that too. He handed her a folder. These are the details of the position. 3 months, full benefits, competitive salary. We're preparing for our IPO and need someone to reconcile some discrepancies in our financial records. Olivia scanned the documents, her accounting background immediately spotting the considerable salary, more than she'd made at her previous job. This is very generous for a temporary position. We pay for quality, Jack replied simply. Ryan showed me your resume. 2 years at Deloitte, top of your class at Boston University. You're overqualified, if anything. Diana returned with water and coffee, providing Olivia a moment to collect her thoughts. The job was real. The salary would solve her immediate financial crisis, but something still nagged at her. Why didn't you just tell me who you were from the beginning? She asked after Diana left. In the texts. Jack sipped his coffee, considering. Would you have believed me? Hi, I'm a CEO. Let me help you? Probably not, Olivia admitted. And then there's the fact that this is rather unorthodox, he added. The board would have questions about me personally reaching out to a candidate. Max stirred in his carrier, making small noises that Olivia recognized as the prelude to a full-blown hunger cry. With practiced movements, she lifted the baby and reached for the diaper bag. May I? Jack asked, gesturing to a door near his desk. There's a small kitchenette through there, more private. Olivia nodded gratefully and slipped into what turned out to be a well-appointed private break room. As she prepared Max's bottle, her mind raced through her options. The job seemed legitimate. The company was reputable. She'd looked it up on her phone during the subway ride. And yet, the circumstances remained strange enough to give her pause. When she returned, Jack was on the phone, his voice low and tense. I don't care what Donovan thinks. We're not selling that division because I gave my word to those employees. That's why. He caught sight of Olivia and quickly ended the call. Sorry about that. IPO negotiations are always tense. Olivia settled back on the couch with Max in her arms. It sounds complicated. Business usually is, he replied, watching as she fed the baby. You're good with him. I had to be, Olivia said softly. His father left when he found out I was pregnant. It's just been us. Jack's expression darkened momentarily. His loss, he said simply. The conversation shifted to the specifics of the job. Hours, responsibilities, the project timeline. Olivia found herself relaxing as they discussed familiar accounting territory. This at least made sense to her. One last thing, Jack said as their meeting drew to a close. The on-site daycare is excellent, but it currently has a waiting list. Until a spot opens for Max, would you be comfortable working from my private office suite? There's a small conference room you could use, and Max would be welcome. The offer took Olivia by surprise. That's unusually accommodating. I told you, we need your skills, Jack replied, though something in his expression suggested there was more to it. And the work needs to be kept confidential given the sensitive nature of the IPO. As if on cue, Diana appeared at the door. Mr. Thorne, your 10:30 is waiting. Jack stood, extending his hand again. So, Olivia Morris, do we have a deal? Olivia hesitated only briefly before taking his hand. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Perfect. Diana will help you with the paperwork. You can start Monday. He paused at the door. And Olivia, the $500 was a gift, not an advance. No need to pay it back. Before she could protest, he was gone, leaving Olivia with the distinct impression that her life had just changed course in ways she couldn't yet imagine. What she didn't see was Jack stopping in the hallway, removing a photo from his wallet, a woman holding a baby boy, and staring at it with a complex mixture of emotions before tucking it away and straightening his shoulders to meet his next appointment. As Diana led her through the paperwork, Olivia couldn't shake a lingering question. Why would the CEO of a company about to go public personally involve himself in hiring a temporary accountant? And why did she feel there was much more to this story than he was telling her? She looked down at Max, now contentedly sleeping in her arms, and made a silent promise. Whatever happened next, whatever secret Summit Innovations might be hiding, she would protect her son and herself at all costs. Chapter 3. Following the money. 3 weeks into her contract at Summit Innovations, Olivia had settled into a routine that still felt surreal. Each morning, she and Max would take the elevator to the top floor where Diana would greet them with a warm smile and often a cup of coffee for Olivia. The small conference room adjacent to Jack's office had been transformed into a functional workspace complete with a portable crib for Max's naps. The financial reconciliation project was challenging but engaging, exactly the kind of work Olivia had excelled at before Max's birth had derailed her career plans. The discrepancies she'd been hired to investigate were subtle but significant, consistent patterns of small financial aberrations that individually meant little but collectively suggested something more troubling. "These numbers don't add up," Olivia murmured to herself, comparing spreadsheets on her dual monitors. Max babbled happily from his playmate on the floor, entertained by the colorful toys Diana had mysteriously produced on Olivia's second day. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. Jack stood at the door, his tie loosened, looking more tired than she'd seen him before. "Making progress?" he asked, entering and immediately crouching down to greet Max, who squealed in delight at the attention. The baby had grown inexplicably attached to Jack, reaching for him whenever he appeared. "Some," Olivia replied, watching their interaction with a mixture of warmth and caution. "But I found something concerning in the Westlake acquisition accounts." Jack's focus shifted immediately. "Show me." Olivia pulled up the relevant files, explaining the pattern she'd discovered. "These variances are too consistent to be accidental. Someone's been systematically siphoning small amounts from multiple accounts, then covering their tracks with adjusted entries." Jack's expression darkened as he studied the screen. "How much are we talking about?" "About 2.5 million over the past 18 months, Olivia said quietly. "You're sure? It's why you hired me, isn't it?" she countered. "To find exactly this kind of thing." A flicker of something. Guilt? Concern? Crossed Jack's face. "Yes, of course." He straightened, running a hand through his hair. "I need you to prepare a complete report. Don't share this with anyone else yet." "Not even Ryan? Not even your brother? Not even your CFO?" Olivia asked, surprised. Jack's jaw tightened. "Especially not Derek. Not until we know more." After he left, Olivia sat back, troubled by the exchange. Why would the CEO want to keep potential embezzlement from his chief financial officer unless— "No," she muttered to herself. "Don't go creating conspiracies." But the seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, after putting Max to bed in their now considerably more comfortable apartment thanks to her Summit salary, Olivia began her own investigation. By midnight, she had compiled a disturbing timeline. The financial discrepancies had begun shortly after Derek Nichols had been appointed CFO following the unexpected resignation of his predecessor. The next morning, Olivia arrived earlier than usual, determined to speak with Jack before the day's meetings began. She found his office dark, which was unusual. He typically arrived before everyone else. A text notification lit up her phone. "Emergency board meeting. Use the time to finish your report. We'll talk later." The vague message did nothing to ease Olivia's growing unease. She settled Max in his play area and dove back into the financial records, expanding her search parameters. By lunchtime, her suspicions had solidified into certainty. Someone high up in Summit was systematically embezzling funds, and the patterns suggested intimate knowledge of the company's financial oversight systems. Olivia was so engrossed in her work that she didn't notice Derek Nichols until he was standing in her doorway, his imposing figure blocking the light. "Morris," he said smoothly. "Hard at work, I see." Olivia instinctively minimized her screen. "Mr. Nichols, can I help you?" The CFO's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I understand you've been working on some special project for Jack. Curious that he didn't involve the finance department?" "Just some reconciliation for the IPO," Olivia replied vaguely, her heart racing. "Nothing exciting." Derek stepped further into the room, glancing at Max, who watched him with solemn eyes. "Convenient arrangement you have here. Private office, bringing your child to work. Jack must think very highly of your skills." The insinuation was clear and made Olivia's cheeks burn with indignation. "Mr. Thorne values efficiency," she said stiffly, "and I found several issues that needed addressing." "I'm sure you have," Derek replied, his tone making it clear he believed something entirely different was going on. "Just remember, Miss Morris, Summit was doing fine before you arrived, and it will continue long after your temporary position ends." After he left, Olivia sat shaking, both angry and frightened. The confrontation confirmed her suspicions that Derek saw her as a threat, but it also suggested something worse, that others in the company might perceive her special arrangement with Jack as something inappropriate. She was still processing the encounter when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Olivia Morris speaking," she answered professionally. "Miss Morris, this is Detective Sawyer with the Financial Crimes Division." The woman's voice was brisk and official. "I understand you're currently employed at Summit Innovations." Olivia's blood ran cold. "Yes, that's correct. We're investigating some irregularities in Summit's accounts. I'd like to ask you a few questions. I'm not sure what I can tell you," Olivia stammered, looking anxiously toward Max. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation at our office," the detective suggested. "This afternoon, if possible." By the time Jack finally returned from his meeting at 3 o'clock, Olivia was nearly frantic. She immediately pulled him into his office, closing the door. "The police called me," she blurted out. "Financial Crimes Division. They want me to come in for questioning. And Derek Nichols was here, acting suspicious about what I'm working on." Jack's face paled. "Damn it," he muttered. "This is happening faster than I expected." He paced the length of his office, then turned to her with unexpected intensity. "Olivia, I need to tell you something, and I need you to trust me." "Trust you?" she echoed incredulously. "Jack, what's going on? Am I being set up for something?" "No," he said firmly. "The opposite. I need to show you something." He unlocked a drawer in his desk and pulled out a thick file. "I haven't been entirely honest with you about why I hired you." Olivia felt the floor shift beneath her. "What do you mean?" Jack's next words would change everything, and place both of them directly in the crosshairs of a dangerous conspiracy that had been growing within Summit Innovations for far longer than either of them realized. Enjoying our stories? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content. Now let's get back to our story. Chapter 4. The Setup. "You weren't randomly assigned to me through a wrong number," Jack said, his voice low and urgent. "I've been investigating internal theft at Summit for months. We needed someone from outside the company, someone with no connections to the executive team. So you, targeted me?" Olivia felt sick. "Your brother mentioned you months ago, your skills, your situation. When we needed someone trustworthy, I remembered." Jack looked genuinely regretful. The wrong number text was genuine, that part was coincidence. But once I realized who you were, I saw an opportunity. "You manipulated me," Olivia whispered, thinking of Max, of how vulnerable they had been. "To give you a legitimate job that you're excellent at," Jack countered. "Yes, I had ulterior motives for hiring you, but not the kind you're thinking. I'm working with the SEC on this, Olivia. Derek Nichols isn't just embezzling. He's laundering money through our international divisions." Olivia sank into a chair, her mind racing. "The detective who called is legitimate," Jack confirmed. "But you need to be careful what you tell her. We don't know who else might be involved." Before Olivia could respond, Diana burst into the office without knocking, something she'd never done before. "Jack," she said, her usual composure shattered. "They're here, board security and the police. They're saying—" she faltered, looking at Olivia with confusion. "Saying what, Diana?" Jack prompted, already moving toward Olivia and Max. "They're saying you've been embezzling funds. They have a warrant for your arrest, and they specifically mentioned Missy Morris as an accomplice." Olivia clutched Max to her chest, a cold wave of terror washing over her. "This can't be happening." Jack's face hardened as he made a swift decision. "Diana, use the private elevator. Get Olivia and Max out of the building now. Take them to the safe house." "The safe house?" Olivia repeated, feeling as though she'd stumbled into some bizarre thriller movie. "Jack, I can't just—" "Olivia," he interrupted, gripping her shoulders and looking directly into her eyes. "Listen to me carefully. Derek knows you found evidence against him. He's trying to frame us both. If you stay here, they'll separate you from Max while you're being questioned." The thought of being separated from her son was enough to galvanize Olivia into action. She quickly gathered Max's things while Diana collected the files from Olivia's desk. "What about you?" Olivia asked Jack as they moved toward a hidden door behind his bookcase. I'll handle this, he said grimly. I have allies on the board. Just stay safe until I contact you. He hesitated, then added more softly. I'm sorry for not being completely honest, but I swear everything else, the way I feel about you and Max, that's been real. Before Olivia could process his words, Diana was guiding her through the hidden passage to a private elevator, leaving Jack to face the approaching storm alone. The safe house turned out to be a modest but comfortable apartment in a secure building across town. Olivia paced the living room, Max finally asleep in the portable crib Diana had somehow procured along with diapers, formula, and other essentials. You seem very prepared for this, Olivia observed, watching the older woman efficiently arrange supplies in the kitchen. Diana's normally pleasant expression was serious. Jack has always been careful. When the discrepancies first appeared 6 months ago, he knew something was wrong. So all of this was planned? Olivia asked, struggling to reconcile her feelings of betrayal with the evidence that Jack had been working to expose corruption, not perpetrate it. Not all of it, Diana replied, her expression softening. Finding you was genuine coincidence, but Jack recognized an opportunity when he saw it. Someone with the skills we needed, with no connections to Derek's network. But why not just go to the authorities from the beginning? He did, Diana said. But Derek has powerful friends. The first investigation was quietly closed due to lack of evidence. She handed Olivia a cup of tea. Jack needed irrefutable proof before moving forward again. Which I found, Olivia realized. Which you found, Diana confirmed. Olivia sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. And now I'm hiding in a safe house like some character in a thriller while Jack is possibly being arrested for crimes he didn't commit. Jack can take care of himself, Diana assured her, though worry lines creased her forehead. He's been preparing for this confrontation for months. Hours passed with no word. Olivia tried to distract herself by reviewing the files Diana had saved, looking for anything that might help Jack's case. Around midnight, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Are you safe? Yes, she typed back cautiously. Is this? It's me, came the reply. Had to ditch my regular phone. Police took my devices but released me for now. Derek's playing this carefully, making it look like he's the one who discovered the embezzlement. What happens now? Olivia asked. Now we use what you found. My contact at the SEC is meeting us tomorrow, 10 a.m. Olivia stared at the message. Us? If you're willing. You found the evidence. You can explain it better than anyone. Olivia glanced at Max, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the chaos surrounding them. By agreeing to meet with the SEC, she'd be stepping directly into a dangerous situation, potentially making herself a target. The sensible thing would be to take Max and disappear. She had enough money saved now to start fresh somewhere, but running would mean Derek Nichols and his accomplices might escape justice. It would mean abandoning Jack after he'd put himself at risk trying to do the right thing. Despite his deception about how they met, everything else, the job, the accommodations for Max, the respect for her work, had been genuine. I'll be there, she replied. The next morning after Diana arrived to watch Max, Olivia met Jack at a nondescript office building downtown. He looked exhausted but managed a relieved smile when he saw her. You came, he said simply. I almost didn't, Olivia admitted. Part of me still thinks this is crazy. It is crazy, Jack agreed, guiding her inside with a gentle hand at her back. But it's also necessary. The SEC agent, a sharp-eyed woman named Rivera, listened intently as Olivia walked through her findings, explaining in detail how the embezzlement scheme worked and how it had been disguised. This is exactly what we needed, Agent Rivera said when Olivia finished. Clear evidence of both embezzlement and money laundering. She turned to Jack. The board meeting is scheduled for this afternoon? Jack nodded. Derek will be there, along with the board members who've been protecting him. They're planning to formally accuse me and vote me out. Perfect, Rivera smiled thinly. We'll be ready. The plan was straightforward but risky. Jack would attend the board meeting as expected. Olivia would wait with the SEC team in an adjacent room, ready to present her evidence once Derek made his accusations. The timing would be crucial. They needed Derek to explicitly lie to the board with federal agents present. As they prepared to leave for Summit Innovations, Jack pulled Olivia aside. If this goes wrong, he said quietly, Diana has instructions to get you and Max out of the country. There's an account set up in your name with enough to start over. Olivia stared at him, stunned by the extent of his contingency planning. It won't come to that, she said with more confidence than she felt. Just in case, Jack insisted, pressing a small envelope into her hand. And Olivia, thank you for trusting me even after everything. The board meeting began precisely at 3 o'clock. Olivia watched through a monitor in the next room as Derek Nichols stood to address the gathered executives. His face a mask of regretful duty. It pains me to present these findings, he began, distributing folders to each board member. But the evidence is clear. Jackson Thorne, with the assistance of an outside accomplice named Olivia Morris, has been systematically diverting company funds to offshore accounts. Olivia felt sick hearing her name spoken with such calculated malice. On screen, Jack remained impressively calm. That's a serious accusation, Derek, he said evenly. I assume you have proof? The proof is in front of you, Derek replied smoothly. Financial records don't lie. No, they don't, Jack agreed, which is why I'd like to introduce some additional evidence. He nodded toward the door, the signal they'd arranged. Agent Rivera opened the door, and Olivia entered the boardroom with 2 SEC agents flanking her. The shock on Derek's face was momentarily satisfying before it transformed into calculated composure. Miss Morris, he said coldly. How convenient. Here to defend your benefactor? Actually, Olivia replied, I'm here to explain how you've been stealing from Summit for the past 18 months. For the next 30 minutes, Olivia walked the board through her findings, methodically dismantling Derek's false narrative while the SEC agents distributed her report. She explained how Derek had created a sophisticated system of small diversions, hidden accounting adjustments, and falsified reconciliations to mask the theft of millions. The pattern begins precisely 3 weeks after Mr. Nichols became CFO, Olivia concluded, and the money trail leads directly to shell companies where he's the beneficial owner. Derek's face had grown increasingly pale as she spoke. When she finished, he glanced toward the door, clearly calculating his chances of escape. Don't, Agent Rivera warned, noting his gaze. The building is secured. What happened next occurred so quickly that Olivia would later struggle to recall the sequence. Derek lunged across the table toward her, something metallic flashing in his hand. Jack moved without hesitation, placing himself between them. There was a moment of chaotic struggle, shouts from the agents, and then Derek was on the floor, restrained. Jack! Olivia cried, seeing blood spreading across his shirt. It's just a scratch, he assured her, though his grimace belied his words. Though, I might need a new shirt for the rest of this meeting. Chapter 5. Aftermath and Revelations. 3 hours later, after Derek and 2 board members had been taken into custody, after statements had been given and wounds treated, Olivia sat with Jack in his office. Diana had brought Max, who was contentedly exploring a new stuffed elephant while the adults processed the day's events. So what happens now? Olivia asked, watching Jack gingerly adjust the bandage on his arm. Professionally, damage control. The company will survive this, though the IPO might be delayed. He hesitated. Personally, that depends on you. On me? Jack met her gaze directly. Your contract has 2 months left, but I'd like to offer you a permanent position. Head of Internal Audit, reporting directly to the Board for Independence. Outside Jack's office window, Boston's skyline glittered against the darkening sky. The day's tension had left Olivia drained, yet paradoxically alert. Every sense seemed heightened. The soft texture of the leather chair beneath her fingertips, Max's contented babbling, the faint scent of antiseptic from Jack's bandaged arm. In the space of a single day, she had gone from potential criminal to corporate hero. The whiplash was disorienting. I suppose I'm still processing everything, Olivia admitted, watching as Max abandoned his elephant to crawl toward Jack, who instinctively reached down to scoop him up with his uninjured arm. The casual intimacy of the gesture, the way Max settled against Jack's chest as if he belonged there, stirred something in Olivia's chest. I can understand that, Jack said, his voice softening as he adjusted Max in his lap. When I first discovered the discrepancies months ago, I spent weeks in denial. Derek was my friend, or so I thought. We started at Summit together 10 years ago. The idea that he would betray not just me, but everyone who works here. He trailed off, shaking his head. Why didn't you confront him directly? Olivia asked. Jack's expression darkened. I tried initially. Not an outright accusation, but I raised concerns about irregularities I'd noticed. 2 days later, an anonymous tip to the board suggested I was using company funds to cover gambling debts. He tried to frame you even then, Olivia realized. Yes, Jack nodded. That's when I knew I needed to be more careful, and that I needed someone with fresh eyes and unquestionable integrity. His gaze settled on her face. I just didn't know where to find that person until your text appeared on my phone. Diana knocked and entered, carrying a tray with sandwiches and coffee. You both need to eat something, she said firmly, setting the tray down. It's been hours and neither of you has had a break. Olivia realized suddenly she was famished. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the confrontation in the boardroom had evaporated, leaving her hollow and shaky. Thank you, Diana, she said gratefully, taking a sandwich. The press is already calling, Diana informed Jack as she handed him coffee. I've instructed PR to release only the approved statement for now. The SEC has asked that we limit public comments until they complete their initial investigation. Jack nodded. And the board? In emergency session. They've asked me to tell you they'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 and request your presence. Diana's expression softened as she looked at his bandaged arm. I told them you'd been injured and suggested a later start, but they insisted. Of course they did, Jack muttered. Damage control mode. They're worried about the IPO and their stock options more than the fact that their CFO just tried to stab someone in the boardroom. After Diana left, Olivia and Jack ate in companionable silence, both too exhausted for further conversation. Max had fallen asleep against Jack's chest, his small face peaceful despite the day's chaos. He trusts you, Olivia observed quietly. Children have good instincts. Jack looked down at the sleeping baby, his expression complex. Tyler used to fall asleep like this, he said, his voice barely audible. Right in the middle of whatever we were doing, as if he'd simply decided that's enough for today and shut down. It was the first time he'd mentioned his son without pain visibly constricting his features. Progress, Olivia thought, though the road to healing was never linear. I should probably get him home, she said reluctantly. The thought of returning to her apartment, secure though it was with Jack's upgraded security system, suddenly felt daunting. The day's events had left her feeling vulnerable in a way that locked doors couldn't address. Jack seemed to read her thoughts. You could stay at the safe house tonight, he suggested. Diana has already stocked it with everything you might need, and the security there is comprehensive. I don't want to impose... Olivia, Jack interrupted gently. There's nothing imposing about accepting help when you need it. Today you helped save my company from a criminal who was perfectly willing to destroy lives for his own gain. Let me at least make sure you and Max are safe tonight. Put that way, it was difficult to refuse. All right, she agreed. Thank you. As Diana helped gather Max's things, Jack received a call that he took in hushed tones by the window. When he returned, his expression was grim. They've searched Derek's home office, he told her. Found evidence suggesting he wasn't working alone. There may be other people involved outside Summit. What kind of people? Olivia asked, alarm prickling along her spine. The kind who don't take kindly to losing millions in laundered funds, Jack said, his voice tight. Which is all the more reason for you to stay somewhere secure tonight. Diana will drive you to the safe house. I'll join you later after I deal with a few things here. Olivia hesitated. Are you in danger too? I'm always surrounded by security, Jack assured her. It's one of the perks, or annoyances, depending on how you look at it, of being a CEO with a public profile. Something in his dismissive tone didn't ring true, but Olivia was too exhausted to press the issue. She gathered a sleeping Max while Diana collected their things. Jack, she said at the door, be careful. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Always am. The safe house was exactly as she remembered from that morning. Comfortable but impersonal, like an upscale extended-stay hotel. Diana moved efficiently through the space, turning on lights and checking secure locks while Olivia put Max down in the portable crib. There's food in the refrigerator, Diana told her. The security team is in the building, but invisible unless needed. And this, she handed Olivia a small device that looked like a sleek key fob, is a panic button. Press it if you feel threatened for any reason. Do you think that's likely? Olivia asked, her throat suddenly dry. Diana's expression was carefully neutral. It's a precaution, that's all. Jack insists on thoroughness. After Diana left, Olivia took a long shower, letting the hot water sluice away some of the day's tension. She borrowed a soft robe from the bathroom and made herself tea in the kitchen, then settled on the couch with her laptop to review her report one more time. The financial trail was damning. Derek had been siphoning money from Summit for over a year, using increasingly sophisticated methods to conceal the theft. What had begun as simple embezzlement had evolved into an elaborate money laundering operation involving offshore accounts and shell companies. But something still bothered her, a pattern she couldn't quite identify. She opened a fresh spreadsheet and began logging dates and amounts, searching for the correlation that hovered just beyond her grasp. 3 hours later, she sat back, stunned by what she'd discovered. The largest transfers coincided perfectly with Summit's biggest acquisitions, times when the finances were in flux and large sums were moving between accounts. But more importantly, each transfer was accompanied by a small but significant stock trade in the acquired company just before the acquisition was announced publicly. Insider trading. Derek hadn't just been stealing. He'd been selling Summit's private information to outside investors. She was reaching for her phone to call Jack when she heard it, a soft scraping sound at the door. Her heart lurched painfully in her chest as she froze, listening intently. It could be nothing. A security guard doing rounds. The building settling. The sound came again, more deliberate this time. Someone was trying to get in. Olivia moved silently to Max's crib, positioning herself between the door and her sleeping son. Her fingers closed around the panic button Diana had given her as the doorknob turned slowly. She pressed the button just as the door swung open to reveal a tall figure silhouetted against the hallway light. "Olivia?" Jack's voice cut through her terror. "It's just me." Her knees nearly buckled with relief. "You scared me half to death," she said, her voice shakier than she'd intended. "I didn't hear you unlock the door. I knocked, but you must not have heard me," Jack said, stepping inside and relocking the door behind him. He carried a small duffel bag and a manila envelope. "Security let me in. Are you okay? You're pale." "I found something," Olivia said, leading him to her laptop. "About Derek's operation. It's bigger than just embezzlement." Jack set down his things and studied her screen, his expression darkening as she explained her discovery. "This means he was working with outside investors, selling them information about our acquisition targets so they could profit from stock movements." "Exactly," Olivia confirmed. "And given the amounts involved, these aren't small-time traders. These are serious players with serious money and serious motivation to keep their identities hidden," Jack added grimly. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Olivia had come to recognize as a sign of stress. "This is why the SEC was so quick to move once they had your evidence. They must have suspected a broader market manipulation scheme. Why didn't they tell you?" "Probably worried about leaks. The fewer people who knew the full scope, the better." He sank onto the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. The bandage on his arm had a small spot of fresh blood. "I'm sorry you got pulled into this, Olivia. This isn't what you signed up for." "I signed up to help find financial irregularities," she reminded him, sitting beside him. "That's exactly what I did. And nearly got stabbed in the process," Jack countered. "Not to mention being labeled an accomplice to crimes you were actually uncovering." "I'm tougher than I look," Olivia said, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. "And I believe in what we're doing. Summit is a good company with good people. It deserves better than what Derek tried to do to it." Jack studied her face. "You're remarkable, you know that? Most people would have run for the hills by now." "I considered it," she admitted. "But then I realized something. All my life I've been reacting to circumstances, adapting to whatever situation I found myself in. When I got pregnant and Max's father left, I adapted. When I lost my job, I adapted. When Ryan moved across the country, I adapted." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But this time I had a chance to actually change the circumstances, to make things better not just for myself and Max, but for everyone at Summit." "And you chose to stay and fight," Jack said softly. "I chose to do what was right," Olivia corrected, "even when it was scary. Even when it would have been easier to walk away." Something shifted in Jack's expression, a softening around his eyes, a new warmth in his gaze. "Do you know when I knew I could trust you completely?" Olivia shook her head. "When you confronted me about the discrepancies in the Westlake accounts. You found something troubling, and instead of hiding it or looking the other way, you brought it directly to me, even though you had no idea how I would react. That kind of integrity is rare, Olivia." His words warmed something in her chest. For so long she had felt defined by her struggles. The single mother barely making ends meet, the woman depending on her brother's charity. It was startling to be valued instead for her character, her principles. "The board wants to interview you tomorrow," Jack said, changing the subject. "They have questions about your findings. I told them you'd need time to rest, but they're insistent." "I'll be there," Olivia assured him. "What should I expect?" "They'll be supportive but cautious. Several of them had close relationships with Derek. They're embarrassed they didn't see what was happening. And they're worried about the IPO, of course. Will it still go forward? Jack nodded. Eventually, yes. We'll need to delay, implement stronger controls, rebuild investor confidence. But Summit is fundamentally sound. What Derek was stealing, as substantial as it was, is a fraction of the company's true value. He reached for the manila envelope he'd brought and handed it to her. Which brings me to this. Olivia opened it and found formal employment documents. The promised position as head of internal audit with a salary that made her eyes widen. Jack, this is a lot. It's market rate for the position with your qualifications, he said matter-of-factly. Actually, it's on the conservative side. I didn't want the board to think I was showing favoritism. Favoritism. The word hung in the air between them, laden with unspoken implications. Jack's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. For a moment, Olivia thought he might kiss her. And more surprisingly, she realized she wanted him to. Instead, he stood abruptly. You should get some rest. Tomorrow will be another long day. Where are you going? She asked, noting his duffel bag. There's a second bedroom. I'll be close if you need anything. He hesitated at the hallway. Olivia, about what I said earlier, about how I feel about you and Max. We don't have to talk about that now, she interrupted gently, seeing the conflict in his expression. We've both been through a lot today. Relief and something like disappointment flickered across his face. Right. Of course. Well, good night then. Good night, Jack. After he'd gone, Olivia sat in the quiet living room, the employment contract in her lap. So much had changed in the span of a single day. She had gone from suspecting her boss of manipulation to understanding he was protecting his company from criminals. She had gone from fearing for her future to being offered a prestigious position with a salary that would provide security for her and Max for years to come. And somewhere along the way, amid the danger and revelations, she had begun to fall for Jackson Thorne. Not the powerful CEO, but the man who had responded to a desperate text message from a stranger, who had put himself between her and harm in the boardroom, who looked at her son with such gentle tenderness that it made her heart ache. Morning would bring new challenges: the board interview, the ongoing investigation, the process of rebuilding Summit's internal controls. But for now, in this quiet moment, Olivia allowed herself to acknowledge the strange and winding path that had led her here, all because of one mistyped digit in a text message. If that wasn't fate, she didn't know what was. Olivia blinked in surprise. That's a significant promotion. You've more than earned it, Jack said sincerely. You saw what experienced executives missed or chose to ignore. Summit needs someone with your integrity. The morning sunlight streamed through Jack's office windows, casting a warm glow over the three of them. Last night's realization still lingered with Olivia. That tangled knot of professional admiration and personal attraction that she wasn't quite ready to unravel. The board was impressed by your presentation yesterday, Jack continued. Even Henderson, who's skeptical of everyone, said you showed remarkable clarity under pressure. It helps when the evidence is irrefutable, Olivia replied modestly. She'd spent 3 hours with the board earlier that morning, walking them through Derek's scheme in meticulous detail. Their shock had gradually given way to grudging respect. Jack shook his head. Don't underestimate what you accomplished. Finding financial irregularities is one thing. Standing up in a room full of powerful executives and clearly articulating complex fraud while the man responsible is being led away in handcuffs, that takes rare composure. Max stirred in Olivia's lap, reaching drowsily for the stuffed elephant that had fallen to the floor. Jack retrieved it and handed it to him, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Something electric passed between them, gone as quickly as it had appeared. Olivia looked at Max, now falling asleep again, clutching his elephant. And the accommodations for Max? A spot is officially opened in the company daycare, Jack replied with a small smile. Though he's welcome in my office any time. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Olivia, I know how this started wasn't ideal. I manipulated circumstances to get you here, and I'm sorry for that. But everything since, getting to know you, watching you with Max, seeing your brilliance in action, that's been the most real thing in my life since I lost Tyler. Olivia felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the day's adrenaline. I need time to think, she said honestly. This has been a lot. Of course, Jack agreed immediately. Take all the time you need. 2 days later, Olivia sat in her apartment, Max playing at her feet as she considered Jack's offer. The position was perfect. Challenging work, excellent pay, the security she desperately needed for Max. But accepting meant tying her future to Jack Thorne, a man who had begun their relationship with deception, however well-intentioned. Her phone rang. It was Ryan. "Hey, big brother," she answered, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. "Don't hey, big brother me," Ryan replied, his tone a mixture of concern and exasperation. "I just heard about everything. A police standoff? Derek Nichols in handcuffs? Why didn't you tell me what was going on?" "I couldn't," Olivia sighed. "It all happened so fast." "And Jack Thorne? Liv, you're working directly for the CEO? It's complicated," she admitted. "Look," Ryan's voice softened, "I know Jack. He's a good guy, unorthodox sometimes, but decent to his core. When he lost his son, something in him broke. The company became his whole life. Until," Olivia prompted, sensing there was more, "until he got a wrong number text about a baby needing medication," Ryan finished. "He hasn't stopped talking about you and Max since that day." After they hung up, Olivia made her decision. She would take the job, not because she needed it, though she did, and not because of her growing feelings for Jack, though they were undeniable, but because she believed in what Summit could be under ethical leadership. The next morning, she arrived at Jack's office early. He looked up in surprise when she walked in with Max. "I'm accepting the position," she said without preamble, "but I have conditions." Jack leaned back in his chair, a smile playing at his lips. "Name them. Complete transparency. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. Agreed. A seat on the ethics committee. I want to help build safeguards that would prevent someone like Derek from ever getting away with this again." "Done. And," Olivia hesitated, then plunged ahead, "I think we should take things slowly. Personally, I mean." Jack's expression grew serious. "Olivia, I would never pressure you." "I know," she interrupted. "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I want to get to know you, the real you, not as my boss, but as the man who sent $500 to a desperate single mother because it was the right thing to do." Jack stood and walked around his desk, stopping just in front of her. "I'd like that," he said softly. Max chose that moment to reach for Jack, babbling happily. As Jack took him in his arms, Olivia realized that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as mistakes, like a mistyped digit that changed everything. Chapter 6. New Beginnings. 6 months later, Summit Innovations held its annual holiday party in the newly renovated headquarters. The IPO had finally launched, smaller than originally planned but more stable, with new ethical safeguards that were being hailed as industry-leading. Olivia, now established in her role as head of internal audit, watched with pride as her team received recognition for implementing these new financial systems. Max, now walking unsteadily, toddled between Olivia and Jack, who had long since moved beyond being just her boss. "Ready for the announcement?" Jack whispered, taking her hand. Olivia nodded, feeling the weight of the engagement ring still new on her finger. They had taken things slowly, building trust deliberately after their unusual beginning. The board already knew about their relationship. Transparency had become Olivia's watchword in both her professional and personal life. As Jack called for attention and shared their news with the gathered employees, Olivia reflected on the text message that had started it all, a desperate plea sent to a wrong number that had somehow found exactly the right person. Later that night, as she tucked Max into bed in their new home, the three of them together at last, Jack sat beside her, watching his new family with wonder. "I keep thinking about coincidences," he said quietly. "One digit different and we never would have met." "Was it really coincidence, though?" Olivia asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "Or something more?" "What, like fate?" Jack smiled, the cynical businessman momentarily giving way to something softer. "Maybe not fate," Olivia replied, watching Max's peaceful, sleeping face. "Maybe just the universe's way of putting things right. You needed to heal after Tyler. I needed security for Max, and Summit needed someone to uncover the truth." Jack's arm tightened around her. "Whatever it was, I'm grateful. Even for the parts where you were furious with me. Especially those parts," Olivia laughed softly. "They taught us both that honesty matters more than comfort." They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, watching Max's gentle breathing, the rise and fall of his small chest under the blue blanket Jack had bought him. The same shade as Tyler's favorite color. "You know what I've been thinking about lately?" Jack said finally. How strange grief is. For 2 years after Tyler died, I functioned like a machine. I went to work, I made decisions, I ran the company. Everyone told me how strong I was. His voice took on a bitter edge. But I wasn't strong. I was numb. I had walled everything off except Summit. Olivia took his hand, lacing their fingers together. That's a kind of strength, too. You survived. But I wasn't living, Jack countered. Not really. Then I got your text, and something cracked. This desperate mom needing medicine for her baby. It was like all those walls I'd built suddenly had a door. And once that door was open, I couldn't close it again. Is that why you helped me? Because I reminded you of what you'd lost? Jack considered this. Initially, maybe. But then I met you, really met you. And you weren't just a mom anymore. You were Olivia. Brilliant, determined, principled Olivia who wouldn't let anyone push her around. Not even a CEO who'd written her a check. Olivia smiled, remembering their early encounters and her initial suspicion. I was so sure you had some ulterior motive. I did, Jack admitted. Just not the one you thought. And now? What's your motive now? She teased gently. Jack turned to face her, his expression suddenly serious. Now? I just want to make you and Max happy. I want to be the man you deserve, the father figure Max might need. I want to build something real with you, something honest and solid. As they left Max's room, Jack pulled Olivia close. I want you to know something. That night, when I found myself staring at a text from a stranger about needing money for her baby's medication, I almost ignored it. I almost did what any sensible person would do, send a polite wrong number text and forget about it. What stopped you? Olivia asked, though she thought she knew the answer. I saw Tyler's photo on my desk, Jack admitted, and I heard his voice in my head saying, Dad, she needs help. And something just clicked. Olivia reached up and touched his face gently. Sometimes the mistakes we think will break us are actually pointing us toward where we're meant to be. Jack turned his head and kissed her palm. Not a mistake, he whispered. The best wrong number in history. In the darkness of their new home, surrounded by the promise of tomorrow, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought them here. From desperate single mother to corporate whistleblower to head of a department. From a woman with $3.27 in her account to someone who had helped save a company from corruption. And through it all, the most important transformation, from two broken, lonely people to a family bound not by blood but by choice, trust, and love that had begun with one mistyped digit. In her pocket, Olivia still kept the slip of paper where she'd written Ryan's new phone number months ago, the one with the wrong digit that had changed everything. Not as a reminder of her mistake, but as evidence that sometimes, just sometimes, the wrong turn leads exactly where you're meant to go. Wow, what a story. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content.